Okay, thank you for tuning in to Stampscaping 101. This is a scene stamped on that same paper that I used on my previous video. It is the Aspire Patelix Autumn Hay paper, shimmering 80-pound text paper. So very lightweight paper from most of the surfaces that I'm used to stamping on, but I really enjoyed the process of that last video, and I thought, I'm going to try this, I don't know, kind of beige-ish looking warm paper with dye-based ink applications in kind of the layering process, and see what it would look like. Sometimes if you have kind of a warmer tinge of kind of a paper or surface or underpainting if you're a painter, and then you paint on top of it with, or apply, in this case, different tones of inks, blue, cooler tones like that, it can kind of give it a nice kind of a glow, in the end result. And that's what I wanted to experiment around with. I'll show you this in the back of this video in the latter part, but this is similar colors applied on top of, the white glossy paper. And believe it or not, because the metallic papers have a little bit of a resistance to dye-based inks as you apply them, they don't get as dark, they don't penetrate the paper as much. So you get this kind of this, I don't know, a different feel to it in terms of the look of it. But I mean, I used more, navy blues on this one, but see that really intense light blue in there is the same blue that I used in here, but it really gives quite a bit of a different end result appearance and feel in terms of the process when applying those inks. So really nice. So very thin paper. I mean, you can get this it probably comes in a cardstock as well, but I don't know, I didn't have any problem of applying. I'm just not used to applying on text weight, paper. I'm usually using cardstock in the form of 10-point or maybe even 12-point thickness, cover weight thickness, but didn't have any problem with that. Enjoyed working on the metallic shimmering paper, and I don't know, it just has a kind of a fun look to it in terms of that cool on warm process. So a lot more things to experiment with in the future in terms of this combination of media. If you choose to watch the video, I hope you enjoy it. If you have any questions, as always, drop us a note in the comment section. Or if you have any questions on the stamps in general, check out our information section on Stampscapes.com. Okay, this paper, this Aspire Patelix Autumn Hay color paper, got that shimmery surface. It took the ink so well in this previous video scene, but I wanna try something on this kind of warm base color. I'm going to stamp out the composition in black ink, and I'm going to see how it takes color. I have no idea from a surface standpoint in terms of the I don't know, that kind of metallic mica type of paper, but I don't know, it seemed to go on just fine on this scene, but also from the standpoint of temperature, one of the things we used to do in painting classes was that we would give kind of our white canvas a kind of a warm base coat, just with a real quick thin wash of I don't know what it was. It was probably a real diluted sepia, maybe color or something of that sort. And then we would put our painting on top of it, so you get these transparent layers of color laid on top of that real thin kind of muted sepia, and it would give it even if you're doing a cool toned area, it would give it kind of a kind of a warm glow, and I'm only a little bit curious if it would, what that would look like on here. I mean, it's not really the same thing, but it's kind of a similar concept, maybe, or same in concept, but of course the medium, that we're working in here, it's different. So, anyways, I just want to see what that would look like. Kind of curious, and also doing it on top of this paper. Let's see how many layers we can add on this. This one's already curling it, just with, I don't know, just stamping the imagery on here. It's such a thin type of paper that I don't know what it would do if I lay down I don't know, 4 or 5 layers on it. But I mean, if you mount these on like a matte paper or something like that after you're done, then that curling isn't going to matter. Okay, now one of the things I'll do on this one is that I will let's see, maybe I'll put some ripples in here right now, water ripple, but I think the foreground imagery I'm going to leave for the end, after I kind of lay down my colors into the scene, just so I can get some really nice crisp impressions with it. I might use a VersaFine or something of that sort. So just laying down a little bit of texture in here, go a little bit more in my darker area, and this texture stamp will kind of act as a bit of a shading medium, I guess, tool, just inherently, so there's more ripples in these areas, especially since I stamped it out in black. A lot of times if I'm doing color, I stamp this out in colors, but let's just keep this really simple and kind of form this little bit of foundation here before the colors. Now, what I found out in the previous videos, this is really wet on here. Okay, I just put my finger in there. It's really kind of inky. See, like that, and my finger is just completely black. So dye-based inks don't dry on this instantly, not like a glossy paper or matte paper. So the metallic surface really kind of holds the ink, I guess, on the surface of the paper, for a longer period of time before it dries. But now, I don't know how long exactly it'll take to dry, but last time I came back to it in about an hour and it was completely dry, so who knows, it might have dried in 10 minutes, it might have taken half hour, I don't know. So I'll check this later and see how it's doing, and we'll start applying the color. Okay, we're back, and this is nice and dry. I didn't make it back as early as I thought, so this is a chance to dry overnight. So again, I'm not really quite sure how long it takes for dye-based inks to dry on this type of paper. The Marvy inks typically are a little bit thinner than most of the other inks that I've tried. So they probably penetrate, I'm guessing, and dry a little bit faster than most other brands of inks that have a thicker kind of consistency to them. But all's well, and it's time to start coloring this. Okay, I think I'm going to go into this scene just as I would with any other kind of high noon type of thing in this type of setting, so I'm thinking about using a range of blue tones in my water and sky, and I'll put maybe some grays or something like that on the rocks, maybe put a little bit of moss on them, experiment with a little bit of alcohol pens as well, so we'll kind of stick to this range of values and hue right here for now. Now, I didn't take the time to color my trees and everything like that with green, which would have, extended or expanded the range of hue on this scene, which might have been nice. But this is kind of an experiment here as far as warms under cools in terms of the temperature, and let's see how this goes. I don't know, maybe I'll add a little bit of color in the sky besides blue, maybe put a little bit of pink or something like that. just always nice. Let's start off with the lightest tone, which is, or lightest value, which is Summer Sky here, and then we'll move into the Bahama Blue and then the Danube Blue. Okay, let's see what this looks like on here. Blue on top of kind of beige. Now, from my experience using metallic papers, I usually do them in a different kind of technique. I'll use just black or something like that and get a grayscale scene going. But the inks spread very nicely on this metallic paper. Now, I thought about using like a VersaFine, but I thought, I don't know, that VersaFine, when I start applying these types of inks in this manner, I thought the VersaFine sometimes kind of dries kind of in a chalky, kind of thicker finish, so I wasn't quite sure if that would smear. I guess that, you know, I can experiment, but I didn't want to on this one. Okay, I'm adding some of this blue into those rocks as well. But so far, so good. It looks a little bit more grayish. It certainly has a different tinge, doesn't it, than working on white paper. Sometimes when we do these scenes like this, it is kind of nice to have kind of an undertone of kind of a different hue. So sometimes when I'm doing this on white paper, if I leave white, I'll add a little tinge of maybe warmth to that space, but we won't need to do it on this one. All right, now I can see that black ink is starting to smear a little bit, so maybe I'll just use a little bit less pressure. I'll do some tapping. I won't kind of use as much pressure on my little swipe, but I do want to get some of that swipe, you know, for those striations in the sky that represent clouds or just kind of vapor, you know, moisture suspended in the atmosphere, sky. Okay, it looks pretty good so far. Just something different, though. Again, this paper color is called Autumn Hay. Just go with any kind of warm, or I don't know, you can try any type of metallic paper. This one's the Metallics again, by Aspire. If you have some form of, oh my gosh, I already forgot the name. Stardream papers would work really well as well. But again, I don't know, it was kind of surprising to me again that the, ooh, we're switching over to Bahama Blue. Look how blue that is. It was surprising to me that the images stamped so crisp and clear, and there wasn't as much, or any, I don't know. I think there was a little bit of resist, you know, in terms of the impressions stamping into this paper that has that type of mica on it. But I don't know. I mean, they definitely look more gray than black. It's like maybe a 70% gray instead of more of a, I don't know, 95% black that the Marvy typically is when stamped onto glossy paper. But I was expecting more of like a 40 or 50% looking gray. Alright, it's kind of nice. It has a, I don't know, maybe a kind of more aged look. perhaps, I don't know. But it has that nice warm glow, doesn't it? And you can see that glow coming from underneath the blue as well, like in all this area right here. The ink is starting to build up, so where I'm holding it, you know, I'm taking off a lot of the ink on my fingers. I don't know, using some rubber gloves might help, you know, so that it doesn't transfer and absorb on my fingers as much, so it won't remove from the paper. But this paper, you know, like what I said about that resist type of aspect of it, you know, when you build up your inks, you're really building up that kind of that surface moisture content. So it's easy to put your finger on there and for it to come off. But that being said, that's also the aspect of the paper that's allowing me to spread it around so nicely. You know, it stays in solution on the paper so that it stays a little bit moister, and I can get this kind of nice, you know, kind of tapered mark on here. So anyways, I like what I'm seeing, and I can see the potential in it as far as the surface goes. And again, as I've said in the previous video, using this really text weight paper, this thinner paper, instead of cardstock or cover stock, I don't know, it's not bad working on. I have a feeling that this paper will really bow quite a bit, but you just counter bow it, and like I said, most of these scenes, if you get a scene that you like, then you'll mat it and affix it to some other paper, and that will get rid of that bowing aspect of it. Okay, adding my Danube blue, kind of more of a navy blue. It's always kind of fun to kind of play around and experiment with new media, as stampers tend to enjoy doing. So, I don't know, we're always looking for kind of what's new and fun to use, potentially. So not just of this, but I don't know, in all of the kind of experiments, I enjoy watching something kind of reveal itself in terms of anything, composition, lighting, media in this case, and seeing something that I haven't seen before. So anyways, there's that kind of iridescence again, you know, which is kind of a nice aspect to it. Alright, I haven't forgot about those rocks. Let's see if I have a clean stylus tool here. Okay, that one looks clean. Let's try a little bit of the gray. Okay, this is called London Fog. I really enjoy that gray. There's not too many grays out there on the market, from what I found. People are a lot more attracted to color, you know. We'll get a lot of, I don't know, maybe Copics have changed that with all the grays they have, but people are usually more attracted to color. From my experience selling pads, gray was always one of those kind of, you know, the least selling, maybe, batch. Alright, that's some gray on those rocks, but I left a lot of the tops of them as is. Okay, now, I did go with the mementos. I do like using Marvies. Let's try that. Let's try a Marvy light blue. It's a fairly bright blue. And let's see how this. My pads, my 20, I don't know, 20 probably ish year old pads are starting to the pad materials are starting to kind of disintegrate. It is foam that's used on these pads, so, but if I get, that's a long time, that, like 20-ish years to use a pad. Yeah, it's real crumbly on my thing. But I don't have a problem with my media coming to an end if it's that old. And what else do we buy these days that really lasts, for forever? Your stamp should. These, I use 100% red rubber, so with no filler, so that should really last a long time. But as far as media goes and stuff, that's quite a long time for a rubber stamp pad too. All right, this blue is looking really good. It's penetrating the surface a little bit more, and I feel it's going on very nicely, and it might be penetrating the surface a little bit more. It doesn't feel too different than the Memento, though. But I can see a brightness, starting to appear. Marvy pad colors are brighter than most. The intensity is quite a bit more extreme in most of their range. There might be other colors, specific colors in other brands, but just in general. All right, let's see. Let's go back to black. I used black to stamp my images with, so I like to use that same color to finish off my toning. I think it brings everything together. Kind of going for a little bit of a vignette. My darker colors tend to be used in the shadows and especially the four corners of my scene. So it really anchors down these the Lakeside Cove right here on the corners. Oh, we're really getting some bowing starting to happen in here. Starting to happen. Kind of when you kind of darken the edges too, like this. If your image was stamped in that color, it kind of has it kind of coming in gradually, forming from the edges. So you really can't see the tree here, but you start moving, transitioning into the light, and it reveals itself. I really like that aspect of things, this kind of graceful emergence of your imagery from the sides, from this kind of vignette. It just, I don't know, it contains things from a compositional standpoint just the same as like studio portraiture would be for, a photograph of someone. They often darken the edges. And these days there's all kinds of things they'll put, digitally they'll put backgrounds and things like that. But kind of your traditional portrait photo is, quite dark on the sides for a more pleasing kind of look. All right, let's take a look here and let's try some, or a very pale application of perhaps some green. This is my shuttle part pens right here, but I have a big collection of them now, but my Marvy La Plume has a kind of a lighter green. See, it's just a really faint one, so let's take a look here. Add a little bit of warmth and kind of a change of hue. Well, it is a change of hue, moving into the green. And I'll add that to some of my rocks. I like going very faint at first. I can go more intense, but in a scene like this with very muted tones and that green, very pale green on the rocks keeps it nice and subtle. So, I usually strengthen my shadows, but with the imagery so light in terms of value, you know, with that, I don't know, 70% gray impression, I don't know what I said before, it's probably, it looks about 70% to me. I don't need to deepen the shadows at all, because it is, you know, the shadows aren't going to get darker than the images, so I'm just going to leave it as is. Okay, now let's kind of continue our experiment with, let's stamp some VersaFine for our foreground imagery, and let's see what that looks like. It'll push the depth, hopefully, by leaving a darker impression for my foreground. Let's see how this goes. Okay, and again, it's the VersaFine Onyx Black Instant Dry Pigment Ink. Well, it's not going to be instant dry on this kind of metallic paper, but it doesn't need to be. I won't be handling this a lot. I'll allow it to set up and dry. Hopefully it dries in time, though. All right, nice light, even pressure with this. I did a video just, you know, talking about pressure. Don't smash your, you know, your tops of your reeds too hard. All right, now this is looking very, very dark. Will it remain that dark upon its drying? I have a feeling it will with that pigment ink aspect, but we'll see. All right, that looks pretty good, huh? In terms of creating that depth there, it really looks quite dimensional against that dye-based black. So remember, use your media for the purpose you intend it to be. You intend it to depict. So, kind of darker things are often things that are a little bit closer to you, even if they're the same objects. Trees that are closer to you would look a darker green or whatever, a darker value than that same type of tree located a mile from you, you know, because of all the atmosphere you're looking through. Okay. So VersaFine is quite fun to use. I used to use the Memories one. Memories Black was quite black as well. I think I have Memories Black still. I'll have to check and see, but something like that too. Kind of your thicker black inks. VersaFine always gives me a really crisp, dark impression, so it's fairly consistent. All right. So, a metallic paper as opposed to cardstock. And stamped out in, you know, a range of blue tones, even starting with that warmer tinge. That looks pretty nice though, doesn't it? Then I guess you have that shimmery aspect to it, that kind of iridescent looking paper, which is fun. I would stamp some kind of subject in here, like a little boat or something like that would be really good, or some birds in the background. But as far as the composition, you know, to compare and contrast, here's another one, you know, done on that same paper from the previous scene where I've used the pigment ink in there. But I'd say this looks pretty good as far as kind of that warmth goes. Here's a very cool tone scene. You can see that, you know, quite a bit of difference, you know, between the feel of this one on white glossy. This is, it's for the most part, it's, very similar blues applied to this one as this one right here. I did go into some of my darker blues and it's that really intense blue down here. That's the same one that's been applied here, but it just looks completely different on this metallic paper as opposed to white glossy. So kind of a nice look. It has a different feel completely, and blue down here and over here looks pretty good, I would say, as far as the appearance of it applied over the top of a warmer temperature paper, or paper, not cardstock. So, all right, fun stuff. I enjoyed it a lot. The whole process of it, as I do with most scenes, but this one I just I haven't done this before, so kind of fun and I don't know, exciting's the word, but certainly fun to watch develop, and how that paper takes the ink and what that ink looks like on top of the paper. So this is what it looks like. I have these lights coming in, and sometimes, like my previous video, I thought, man, that reflective quality of the surface, I hope people can kind of get the gist of what it looks like on there. But look at this paper, it's starting to bow as we just sit here watching it dry. Anyways, hope you enjoyed it. Hope you liked the look at the paper. Fun with metallics on with dye-based and black pigment ink. I don't know. I don't think it needs any additional embellishment, with like a white pen or something like that. I'll think about it, but I don't know. Maybe a little sparkles down in the water, but I don't know. I like what I see. Thanks for watching.